Jean-Marc Gadori has a presentation on the Blue Ridge and Western layout and the tours involved with that. So JM, your turn, my friend.
Thank you, Razor. I can't let Lowell get too far away without saying I was given a special request today by one Daniel Chu. He's a member of the Richmond area NTRAK, and he said he wanted a shout out. If he could have his name thrown across the airwaves today, tell Lowell Smith he's very much a Great Northern fan and very much interested in what you got to offer. So we'll leave it right there, Daniel. You're welcome. I'll take tips later on this week. All right, I'm going to share my screen right now. What we're looking at right now is the BReWed Railroad. The Blue Ridge and Western Railroad emerged from RANTRAK. RANTRAK is the label that describes the Richmond area NTRAK. And it's been my distinct honor to have followed our organization president, John Wallace, around last weekend at Amherst Train Show as we kicked off the celebration of 50 years of N-scale modular model railroading. And what I get to tell you now is a story that is born out of NTRAK, out of our very organization. Slide number one. All right, so the objectives of this tour this afternoon, number one, I want you to duplicate what we've done. If you've got any inclination that you like what you see, please do it better. Number two, reveal the process that leads to the outcome. I'm going to show you how we as an NTRAK organization managed to put together a layout that we're very proud of, and hopefully you'll find out why. Finally, third, we're going to immerse you in our plausibly prototypical fictional narrative. There's a mouthful. Plausible. Yeah, it is possible. Prototypical. Yep, we kind of modeled what we do after the real thing, except it's totally fictional. So it's a narrative. We are storytellers. And that's the bottom line here is I want to inspire the storyteller in you. Even if you're not modeling the Pennsylvania Railroad per se, if you've got Steve and Steve's model railroad, we want you to take that same storyteller concept with you. All right. So here's what we're going to see this several times throughout the slideshow, a layout tour roadmap. We're going to start with a history of RANTRAK, because I think some of you are going to identify your own model railroad club story in our story as well. And then we'll talk about the Ashland, Virginia clubhouse, where our layout is located. And then we're going to show you the floor plan and the objectives we have. We'll show you some of the insides of the bench work. We're going to open up the hood on the track plan and the electrical. And then we'll wrap up with the narrative, the very narrative of that plausibly prototypical fictional story. And we'll finish with the scenery. All right, so let's start with the history. What we're looking at right now is an excerpt from a document written by our first club president. His name was Ted McCormick. And the roots of the Richmond area NTRAK reach back to Lynchburg, Virginia in the late 1970s. Now, you should all know by now that NTRAK itself launched in 1973 with the shows out in San Diego. And so by 1978, the owner of a local hobby shop who was seeking to expand his customer base, interested in a small group of N-scalers, something called an NTRAK modular railroading. And it was from those early meetings that the Central Virginia NTRAK Club was established. Now, about that time, the Richmond Freelance and Prototype Model Railroaders, that's a 501c3 organization. So the RF&P Model Railroaders had begun the tradition of displaying a small layout at the Science Museum of Virginia. And in 1981, the RF&P wanted to expand the show, and our first club president, Ted McCormick, volunteered the services of Central Virginia NTRAK in hopes of recruiting enough interested N-scalers to get a club started. Man, I hope you all just underscore that line right there. The little invitations that we make, the little opportunities that we create can lead to amazing things. So in 1981, the NTRAK concept first appeared in Richmond. That year, and a man named George Hughes set up an 8x16 layout at the Science Museum, and it was a tremendous success as a local recruitment tool, and there was a number of interested members that came out as a result. What we're looking at here is some of those early shows. Some of those early members are actually pictured here. Some of them have long since retired, moved on, and maybe in some cases moved on in life. But as an expression of their gratitude for the success of the annual train show, the Science Museum of Virginia made space available in their building on the 3rd floor. So we, as RANTRAK, along with our RF&P model railroaders that included HO and Lionel, we all had space on the 3rd floor of Broad Street Station, which was the home in Richmond to the RF&P Railroad. Now, the organization is called RF&P, but it's not the Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac. No. It's the Richmond Freelance and Prototype, because we're model railroaders, all right? Now, there were a variety of concerns associated with RANTRAK and getting us involved, getting us started, getting modules built. Some of those members had no experience whatsoever, but there were other factors that aided in the expansion in the early 1990s. First, in somewhat larger work area in the Science Museum enabled more construction and improvement. But second, we're looking at Bob Crowder right here. Bob is no longer with us, but his experience in carpentry, track laying, electrical skills led to a better quality work product. And we had several new club projects, including a set of yards and 3 modules that had a very crowd-pleasing track configuration. And RANTRAK started to gain more public exposure outside of the Science Museum, simply by appearing at local shopping centers and also at several Richmond area Greenberg and Great American train shows. So I really think there's a lesson there. If we can find somebody, just one person who's got the skills and the inclination to carry us to the next level, who knows where your layout can go. So it was these activities out in the community that brought out new club members. There's a whole number of them listed here. Some of them are still members of our club today. In fact, they're going to feature prominently in the next photographs I show you. These individuals helped RANTRAK to grow even more through additional events, such as a successful Christmas layout in a local county, and also participation by several of our members. Listen up, Northern Virginia. Several of our club members brought their modules to Northern Virginia NTRAK's Running Trains, 1996. At the time, that was the largest NTRAK layout at the time. And what an amazing show that was. Now, further, the increased exposure led to other NTRAK groups coupled with the club's relocation. So we did relocate at this point out of the Science Museum up to Ashland, Virginia. And we also created our own NTRAK concept, kind of a little composite known as Twin Track. It was 2 tracks running around, basically a dog bone style layout, no center pit. And we also did some downtown Richmond Christmas shows. And then there was this little unconvention that our organization did with the very huge amount of effort and help from our Northern Virginia brothers. It was called the Unconvention, No Bull, all trains, all the time, held in 1999 at the Richmond Raceway Complex. And here you see several of those early members. Bob, wow, and right there, those are the convention cars that we offered that weekend. Several of our featured members, Tony DeMasi, Tom Kaiser, working at modules. That was there within Division 6, there at that 1999 convention. So these are some really historical photos. And what you need to know right now is like, JM, where's this BReWed Railroad? Every experience that you're seeing photographed here led directly to what you're about to see. All right, so that was the Ashland, Virginia Clubhouse. Well, that was the history of RANTRAK and now the clubhouse. There it is. This is what the clubhouse used to look like, a little courtyard that had trees and all that. Think of it today, none of those exist, but the storefronts do. We've got 6 unique storefronts divided between HO and N scale, all located in Ashland. And what really got us famous, I say famous, is that when Jim Fitzgerald promotes anything you do, that makes you famous by definition. This was in the N scale magazine in August of 1999, describing a big NTRAK layout. That is the actual design of the layout that was featured that year. And you'll notice right here, this was the RANTRAK segment. It was just a dog bone, but everything else in there were a variety of different loops. And that's when digital started to take command at that show, as it had at the previous show in 1996. And we followed up 1999 with 2002. We had to go from Unconvention 1 to Unconvention Part 2. And so there's the ad that we posted up in N Scale Railroading, or N Scale Magazine. And we held the actual convention. The train show was held in the Broad Street station. There's a picture inside the tent set up underneath or over top of the sheds. So they literally preserved the sheds, covered over the track with a concrete pad. That is where we held that train show back in 2002. And spawning from those shows where we were getting together with other NTRAK clubs and we were running trains all the time. We weren't doing clinics. We weren't doing a lot of other conventions. We weren't traveling away from the venue. We stayed right at the venue so we could run trains as much as possible. And we discovered we had some friends and some colleagues, and we referred to them as the Eastern N Lines. And those groups got together in 2003 to put on the first Danville Rail Days. So there's a connection too. All right, so later that year, after that unconvention too, we're at the Science Museum of Virginia. You see our own Doug McBee working here on a very intricate bridge. And we weren't quite sure where that bridge was going to go yet, but we're about to see where it was going to go. And then here's some of our other club members, Tom Kaiser and Dave Beasley, very instrumental in bench work and so much of the early scenery of our layout. And Dave Melling, who is our club electrician. We're going to see a lot of his work here in just a moment. So here we are doing where we do most of our planning, right around a table that looks like that with some beverages, and usually it's after a train show on a stack of napkins, no less. And here's a club meeting. You guys might recognize our own NRAIL's secretary, the NRAIL newsletter editor. There's Steve Stallnaker, right next to our own John Crockett. And we're having a club meeting in which we were discussing, right now, we are in the portion of our club room that has the most space. There are 3 storefronts, but our HO club, which was still emerging, only had 2 storefronts. And we had a decision to make. What would happen if we give up our 3 storefronts, trade down with the HO group to 2 storefronts, and take the empty depot, which was right next door, and use that as a storage for our NTRAK modules? Could we do something with that 2-store space? Well, that's what we did. And here is Livingstone Sitzman. This is back in 2015. Those of you who know Stone know him. He's a lot taller now. He's in college, and I couldn't help but put this photo in. He's helping us move out of that large space on that given year. Okay, so here's those storefronts I was referring to. This is where we were, and then here are the 2 that are adjacent. And then over here, darkened, is where our storage depot is. So we made the move to that side, and that's where our layout is located today. You can see this Google image of the entire shopping center, and the entire RF&P model railroaders has this back quadrant. And right here, I'm putting the pointer right over Richmond area NTRAK. And you can see we were in the process of clearing up those windows. Okay, just doing a time check here. Oh boy, we're getting along quick here, so I'm going to speed up. You can see us vacuuming the floors, and we immediately finished the floors by putting our layout in. You can see that whole process by looking at the timestamps. It only took us 2 hours. So, there's something we learn as NTRAKers, isn't there? We know how to set things up. We know how to take them down and pack away and be on the road real quick, don't we? Yes, it's called skills. All right. Now, here is, I'm going to fast forward through some of this takedown. We're conversing amongst ourselves about what we could do next. And here's what we did next, right? Here's a design of the RANTRAK. We'll refer to it as the analog layout. We built a standing in place analog layout that would allow us to run our DC locomotives while we knew we were going to take several years to build a digital layout. So for a number of years, all we had was an analog layout and a digital layout. And fortunately, we had a bunch of hard workers. We had a lot of guys that like to work together. Teamwork makes the dream work, right? We've heard that many times. Here we are putting pencil to paper and sketching it out. And here I am on social media posting for Richmond area NTRAK in February 2016. Richmond area NTRAK installed a new DC-powered home layout this week. It's a blank canvas ready for the scenic magic. Actually, back up there, you can see Tom. We refer to this kind of as our cornerstone. He's writing down the date we set up the bench work, the dates that we actually laid the first track, and the date that we ran the first train. Very important to have these little historic moments recorded somewhere on your layout. All right, so we had several versions of the layout. This was the first one that we ultimately didn't go with. Here was the one we ultimately did go with. So we put that analog layout to the right, and this huge area here we have reserved for the DCC layout. In the back room, this is pretty much the area where we enter each day, and this is a workshop back here. All right, so now to bench work and track. Well, some of you really like the dimensions, and so here's the detailed numbers. 24 feet by 21 inches is the Blue Ridge and Western Railroad, 504 square feet. That yields 431 linear feet of main line, and we deliver it in 3 levels. It is a 3-level model railroad. And in addition to that, we have that analog track, 14 feet by 12, 168 linear feet of main line. I can tell you, even just today, our members, in fact, even a new member just joined today, was running his analog only. He did not have digital yet. He was running his train on that layout. So it's always good to have multiple options for many people. All right, let's see for the next slide. All right, so here was our layout team, and they're throwing out the bench work design. And the next slide shows that a little bit more particularly. You'll notice that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This layout was built in 9 segments, and there's a reason for that. We are a modular model railroad club. We lease the space that we're in, and any day, the shopping center could decide that they've got a better tenant than us and throw us out. And we didn't want to destroy a layout when that happened. So we designed our layout so it would be modular. We could separate it into unit pieces, all designed to be carried sideways through regular storefront doors. This is also the design that was drawn by Dave Melling, our club electrician. And you'll notice that in addition to those boards, he's also drawn in our bus cables that he mounted below. We'll see some photos of those, and also the identification of the location of our boosters. So we do have our layout divided into 2 power districts, and that really, there'll be more to fill in those gaps later on in articles and other videos about how to avoid electrical shorts in your layout. But one way to do it is to split the layout in half and just isolate all the problem areas, all right? So here we are, started on that bench work. You can see it's a cookie cutter style. We laid out the main bench, laid the plywood sheets across the main bench, and then started to put the paper down and draw where the main lines were going to go. And then we took a jigsaw, cut out all those pieces, and then raised them up on these little pieces here that you see. Okay, and so that ends up with this nice structure as it's rising. And one night it was just cool. I got to take this picture on February 2nd of 2017. And the coolest thing was watching everyone working in teams of 2 quietly for almost 2 hours. Model railroading is art with a functional canvas. And it was just neat to see our teams coming together with this project. Here we are covering those windows. The windows definitely needed some treatment. And you can see our guys, Dave and Tom, raising up the level basically to our highest level, the 3rd level of our layout. You can see this picture here really shows that difference between what I call the 0-inch mark, the 4-inch, and the 8-inch mark. So that's the different levels of our layout. And you'll see that there is a significant reason to do a layout multi-tiered, and it has to do with scenery. At the end of the day, you can do different scenes on different levels, and they all look like one scene to a general public that's untrained. But to a camera, you take a picture of that scene, you're going to actually see just the scene at the 0-inch level and then the 8-inch level. So we're trying to get as much bang for a buck out of this layout space. And you can see the entire layout space here. Here's another side, and you can see the track work has already been laid in this shot. And all you need to know about the track is that there's only 4 tracks in here. There's a 2-track main, which we refer to as the red and the blue. And then back here, there is a rise and fall. So the red track literally can cross over. There's a double crossover, and it goes to what we refer to as the yellow line. Yellow line comes around the backside and then it ends up on this middle level. The middle level is an entire another area. There'll be territories that we'll describe in the narrative, but also at the very upper level, that is also another incline at the back by this mountain back here. So many options you can do when you have multiple tiers. All right, so early on, this was the diagram that was on our dry erase board. It basically just showed the basic shape of our layout, and it showed the outer line, showed the grade levels, just as a point of reference, made it easy to explain to other folks. And then here's a diagram that I put together that just started to show the scenery. Where was our yard? Where was the REA? Where was the ice plant? You know, if you needed fuel, where could you go for that? And so we were starting to put together the idea of an operation. But you know what we didn't have yet? We didn't yet have a theme. We didn't have a story. Now, we needed to get done our electrical first. So here you see our theme was twist, strip, solder, and repeat. So the way we made our wires, you can see the spools back here. We had multiple color wires. You saw all those bus colors that were associated. We would twist those wires using a drill, right to long lengths. And then we would strip the ends of them, solder those, and repeat the process. Very simple and duplicatable once you get the hang of that. All right, I need to focus now in on this electrical. There's Dave Melling. He is a master electrician by trade. And here you can see the way we use our bus. We anchor them to each module and send them off in different directions so we can drop our feeders directly down to those bus cables. And here's Tom and Dave just drawing out some of those plans as we went from level to level. Always try, fail, and adjust, right? This was actually a jig that Dave built to demonstrate how he was going to take wires and split switches. So we used Pico code 55 track throughout, and we used Pico switches. And one of the things about switches is that you usually have the center portion of the switch that's unwired, or it's not electrically, I don't have the vocabulary to handle this, but bottom line is you can end up with either shorts or you can end up with dead track with trains that will stop. Well, Dave came up with an ingenious way to eliminate that by literally wiring right through the switch, and he demonstrated this on a jig. So we'll have a lot more to show you about that in future articles. Then Dave put together these bus power boxes. Some of you, you'll just be able to look at this and know exactly what you're looking at. We've got the DB, the command stations, PM42s. We got the power supply to begin with. And then in the back, we have a very, very substantial wiring harness that allows you to connect to all of those bus cables. So I would say that what I've learned from Dave Melling over the years, organization. When you get organized and you use color codes to map out where everything is, you are way ahead of the game from electronics. All right, so, oh my goodness, it snowed in the room. Well, once we covered up, we had to eventually get to cover all of that, that plywood. And we did that using plaster cloth, and we used foam risers to kind of create the elevations. And then we covered those foam risers with wire mesh. And then the wire mesh was then covered with plaster cloth. All right, so let's get into the conclusions here on scenery. One of the books that we had on our bookshelf was How to Operate Your Model Railroad. It's a Kalmbach publishing book. And here is one segment of that book. It basically describes that common model railroaders will take an imaginary railroad in a prototype setting with prototype railroad connections. Modelers who use this fascinating approach might go so far as to mapping out their theoretical railroad on state, county, or geographical maps. And they might travel through the area supposedly served by their line and to take notes about the geography and local architecture and industries. Well, in our case, the model railroaders, as we built the benchwork, we had a vision. We had a vision that since we're in Virginia, we wanted to do something that was like the mountains of Virginia, maybe even the Blue Ridge Mountains. And there was one huge railroad that did do a lot of work in the Blue Ridge Mountains. That was known as the Clinchfield Railroad. And in fact, one of our members owns to this day the original model railroad or Clinchfield Railroad. And so we didn't really want to do that again. Like we already have a Clinchfield. So what we really wanted was something that represented the region, but didn't necessarily get wedded to a specific road name. And so here is a geographic map. It's a Google Earth image. And what you see, I told you we had a red and blue line on the lower level. The middle level, we had a yellow line. And in the upper level, we had a green. And so for the first couple of years, we would look at this diagram on the wall to literally trace where our train was going through the region, whether it was from Bluefield, Virginia to Bristol, or from Lebanon, where our brew yard was, or up to Warncliffe, West Virginia. we could even go down to Independence and Meat Camp. Meat Camp, North Carolina was another main destination location for us. So using a map helped us to plot out where we were going. And that helped me. I'm a storyteller, as you can tell. I like to tell the story. And in this case, I crafted a newsletter called the Brew News, and started off with the headline, Born to Win. In 1945, following the end of World War II, a group of U.S. investors, mostly with stakes in the Chesapeake and Ohio Railroad, formed the Blue Ridge and Western Railroad in order to compete head-to-head with the Clinchfield Railroad. The Brew Railroad became known simply as the Brew. And so that's really where the foundation of our story comes from. Now, I have to make an admission. My club members who are in the club room right now are chuckling or saying, JM, we didn't vote for all of that. I mean, yeah, I did write the narrative. And it is also a true statement that our story is not yet finished being written. There are many other ways in which we're interchanging with the Norfolk and Western, with the Virginian. There are so many ways in which this story can evolve. But the bottom line here is that you start. You start with a story in order to create the excitement and enthusiasm, take the layout to the next level. So here we are. We were starting with that analog layout, which was already complete. And we had this little tower over here called the Milton Tower. That was the decal that came on it. And so we referred to this layout as the Milton and Monterey branch line. Monterey, which is over here, is a little town that I crafted after Monterey, Virginia. So that kind of started us in this direction with a map of Virginia on the wall, where we started to look at, okay, where might we be building this model railroad? I mean, it was a functional model railroad, but it didn't yet have the story. And so we put up here on the wall, you can see we had to have a vote. And at one point we thought, well, not the Clinchfield, but how about the Clinch Mountain Railroad? Or maybe even the Ashland Springs Terminal Railway. I mean, we are in Ashland after all. Or the Allegheny Highlands. I don't know who proposed that one. I had no idea about that one. But the winner at the end of the day was the BR Railroad. Whoa, what? The Blue Ridge ampersand. What? Yeah, bra. Okay, that was a little weird. To be honest, guys, as I showed you earlier on the bar top, we make a lot of decisions after shows at restaurants, and we do enjoy a brew or two on a time or two. Yeah, and so the Brew Railroad just had a nice ring to it. We liked the sound of it. That is why the name of our railroad is what it is. And what you're looking at here in the background was some of what we were contemplating with those windows. And so this is a little bit aside here, but did you know that you can take shower curtains? Shower curtains are a very inexpensive way to buy large pieces of canvas using a pipe and drape system like PVC pipe, hanging it and suspending it. You can actually make a nice backdrop for your railroad. This is a concept that we talked about 3 years ago, have not yet done it. So this is on its way. All right, scenery. What you're looking at here in the middle are some pictures that we took, representative samples from the Clinchfield, and you can see the terrain, the way the rocks and the greenery applied. And so we knew we needed to come to something along those lines. And so we started painting the plaster, the hydrocal sheets that we applied, and using some of the very standard color systems. And then we ultimately finished that off with some airbrushing. All right, along the way, we created a ticket. Yeah, because we do have open houses at the clubhouse, so the general public comes through. We decided it might be fun to hand out kids, hand them a ticket, and they could actually punch all the locations, all the stations that they came to along the way. And so here it is, Blue Ridge and Western Railroad System, 4 lines in 4 states. It's West Virginia, Tennessee, North Carolina, and Virginia. And then just recently, and we're getting real close to the end here, Facebook, we posted a variety of photos that describe this narrative. The Blue Ridge and Western, the Brew Railroad, is our fictional competitor to the Clinchfield. Let me get my photo out of the way again here. All right. Our fictional narrative includes investors with stakes, as I mentioned, C&O, plus side agreements with the Southern, the Seaboard, N&W, L&N, and the Virginian. And there's just some of that represented on the layout. Mountaineer District, which is Division 4. I'm running my line over the top of it here. It's traversed West Virginia to Eastern Tennessee range of Appalachia. One of those West Virginia towns, southeast of Warncliffe, featured the Stan and Son Sitzman sawmill. There's a sawmill, and you saw Stone was that young guy in 2015 that was pulling the carts. Yeah, he doesn't look like that anymore, but a great father-son team in our model railroad club. And that was their, I present this to you simply so that you know that every single location on the layout we named after club members. So we took the plausibly prototypical fictional scenery, but then took our club members over the decades and found ways to get everybody's narrative into the story. And so it's just a way to keep everybody invested in what we're doing. Nearby, WRR, West Virginia, featured the Black Mountain Coal Tipple #2. And this is our highest elevation. You're seeing the top end of the peak of it. I'm standing right literally at the corner of the room, poking my camera up high and looking down. That coal tipple is just below this ridge. And we're looking basically at what represents West Virginia. And over here, we're looking at Bluefield, Virginia, the beginnings of Lebanon, Virginia on the lower level, and then all the way off to Lebanon, Tennessee. And then the middle peninsula is North Carolina. We refer to it as Crowder, after Bob Crowder, that very first guy who brought the construction tools to us. But this location is basically a branch line to Boone, North Carolina. So we have basically the 4-state region covered in this area. Not all BReWed revenue is coal and lumber. For Damascus, Virginia, featured the Damasi Fuel Terminal, named after our beloved Tony Damasi. And we also have the Corbeau Consolidated Metal Corporation, crushed metal on the loads. That Daniel Chu I mentioned to you earlier, he's a talented guy and he likes to design locomotives. So here's the Brew with a logo that he designed on there. And here we have the Conwell Consolidated Fruit Growers platform right there in part of the heart of Damascus, which I'm circling there. Nearby in Lodi, Virginia, between the forks of the Holston River, was the Melling Power and Light Company. Well, go figure. You know, our club electrician's name is David Melling. We might as well make the main power plant named after Melling, right? He's a very shy guy. He really doesn't like the fact that I make that the case, but I think it was a great way to honor all the work that he did for us. All right, and across the border into Meat Camp, North Carolina, was the Crockett Brothers Steak Company Slaughterhouse. And there's all the cattle basically waiting to go off to, you know where they go. Steak. Steak's what's for dinner. Hopefully I didn't make you all hungry. In the fictional town of Crowder, a branch line away from Boone in the southern interchange, was the Steiner Tie Treatment Facility. Carl Steiner, another member who's since left us, but he has left his legacy here with the ties. We would take some of that lumber cut at the Sitzman & Son sawmill and have a load delivered up here to the second level where we could then treat those ties with creosote. And we've seen several prototypical examples of these operations right here in the hills. Crowder was also the home to the Buzzard's Roost Coal Tipple. And I will just tell you that it's called Buzzard's Roost Coal. You can barely make it out, but right there, Dave Beasley, who designed this and installed this segment, installed the buzzard on the top of the tree so that it could be referred to as Buzzard's Roost. You know, you can have fun along the way, don't you? Mountain City, Tennessee had a station stop just behind the Beasley Mountain network of tunnels. This is that Mountain City station. And there was also a station stop in Glade Spring, Virginia. So there's our Glade Spring station. And just above both of those locations was Devine, Tennessee, a fictional town near Kingsport. And it was not to be ignored. Passenger and freight both serviced the spur just southwest of Beasley Mountain. And you can see a nice chapel sitting there just inside of it. And near the heart of the Brew Railroad, northeast from Tazewell and Jerry's Junction, and south of Clinch Mountain was the Coghlan Quarry. And one of those early photos you saw of our layout in the Science Museum was Ed Coghlan. He left us more than 20 years ago, but we decided to go ahead and honor him with a quarry on the layout. There was another member of our club named Steve Schott, and we named this Schott Rock and Block. It's also there in the town of Tannersville, Virginia. Bluefield, northeast of Tazewell, had team tracks serving small line side industries, and it had so many connections with the C&O, Virginia, and N&W that we designated an entire siding just for those trains. So we've got the ability to set up tracks and bring trains in from off the layout and install them onto the siding so that we can have prototypical operations. I'm not going to have the time to show you in this presentation, but I'm going to show you some of the evidence of operations. This is called a click chart. It's also known as a car location information chart. Here's an example. Along the west windows, we have a wall, and here is the diagram. I told you we have 4 tracks: track 1, track 2, track 3, and track 4. But I also told you that we have a peninsular layout. So when you're on the outside of the peninsula, you're on the outside. When you're on the inside of the peninsula, guess where you are? Yeah, you're on the inside. So if you just followed this track click chart, it would describe to you in the wood, kind of the brown, where are all of the scenic elements to describe. You know, we're going to go from the outside through Jeb Stuart Tunnel, across the North Holston River, into the Holston Hole. And that's going to bring us to the town of Lebanon. Lebanon is where our brew yard resides, and it's got ice platforms, fuel racks, ash, coal, and sand. So you can see that in that little example, and I'm going to go forward twice here, there is the north wall of our layout, same concept, all the tracks identified, and a click chart, car location. So as we're looking at these charts, you could locate your cars along these charts and even identify how long your sidings and spurs are. So this is all the beginnings of operating your model railroad. And this is something I know that Razor, Steve Gillette, has given us some very specific instruction on even in the past year. All right, so among the things that we do is we take the newsletter, we put those maps up on the wall, the geography maps, the click charts, and the videos that we have, all of which is designed to teach our newest members of the general public, to basically give them the story, tell them the narrative of the Brew Railroad. And so today, this is what our club windows look like. We obviously created a shade effect, and then we have those shower curtains with some train themes facing outward. And then we have some other black shower curtains that basically prevent the very intense sun from baking our layout. But on the inside of those same curtains, at some point in the future, we will have scenery. Right now, you can see it's just the black curtains. All right, I snuck this one in. Everybody can dream, and this is my dream. There is our clubhouse, and I could just envision 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7-story building that includes room for a lot more club layouts. You know, hey, we can all dream, right? Dave Melling and doing some electrical controls. Here are some of those diagrams that we did very early on. Guys, I'm basically running out of steam here because we are virtually at the end. I guess I could finish with this. Here I'm painting the sides of the layout. Instead of just a brown or a black, I'm creating tree color. Why did I do that? Well, when you look at these scenes and you focus your camera in very close, you're invariably going to get some of this backdrop in the background of your photo. And so what I found that this technique did is it makes the sides look more like the tree canopies that are around it. And so the photos just have a lot more realistic feel to them. And let's see, we did the rocking. And okay, guys, you can find the last 3 slides here. You can find more information about us on YouTube. We have our own YouTube channel, Richmond Area NRail. You can find us at RANRAIL-RANTRAK. That would be the @ search term for YouTube. And of course, we've got all kinds of videos down here about the layout itself, including the creation of a train show, and all kinds of neat videos. And then we actually have our website. Website is at RANRAIL.org, and that's where people can join our team. But we also have all of the links to our videos posted on the website, RANRAIL.org. And RANRAIL.org, the website, came after the creation of the Facebook page. And I know that a lot of folks have left Facebook for good reasons, and other people never joined Facebook for even better reasons. But for those of us that hang on, I'll be honest, most of the photos you saw today were preserved in the archives of our Facebook account. So if you're interested in finding out more about the history of us, you can go to all 3 of those sites. All right, I'm now going to stop the screen share. And I see we're already 20 minutes past the hour, so we've gone a long ways today. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you, all of you, members of NRail and the NTRAK audience that you came from, because it was your work over decades and the inspiration that led to the Blue Ridge and Western Railroad. And it was a real privilege to tell a story and to give the pat on the back to the guys who worked so hard to make it happen. All right, Razor. Back to you.
Thank you, Jan. At this point, if you have any questions, now is the time to ask them.
Hello. Where's all the money come from? Who pays to turn on the lights in that place? What about the rent?
It's a great question. In short, we have a relationship with the Science Museum of Virginia. Done a show for the 45th year this year, and when we got, I told you at the beginning, we had our clubhouse in our workrooms located in the museum. Well, they got a huge federal grant in order to refurbish the museum, and we got kicked out in 1998. That's when we went shopping for a new home, and we told them, if you want us to continue these wildly popular shows, we're going to need some revenues to pay for the lease. And so it literally came from that. So the shows that we do literally keep the roof on over our heads.
Wow. Good job, JM.
Thanks a lot.
Very well done. Lots of hard work on that story and by your team on the layout.
Appreciate that.
It was well worth the extra time to me to see that. Very inspiring.
All right. Well, we'll get a chance to see it again when the recording comes out.
Yeah,
Thanks.
There it is.
I must have missed something.
Hey, Daniel Chu, wave your hand, buddy.
Oh,
yeah.
You there?
Lowell's still here. There he
Hi,
is, Lowell.
Daniel.
Daniel is a huge fan of yours, Lowell.
Hello, I just love your train cars. I have a ton of them.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Time for
Appreciate
everybody.
Yeah, everybody loves them. That's for damn.
Nice.
I got to speak for Rolls.
yeah. How do you feel now?
Are we?
DJ's trains and then John Murray.
Daniel Chu, celebrity.
Steve, you can just keep on rolling, man. He hasn't cut it off yet. Bruce is rolling.
How many viewers do we have?
Okay. You want to see the layout?
There you go. Yeah. Nice.
Oh, no, he's white.
We're live streaming now
That's terrific.
until they cut us off,
Yeah,
or until I go for supper.
that's a great idea. Steve, I'm not going to put you on the spot and make you call out all the locations you're passing.
Let's see what we got. Mountain City,
Yep,
Tennessee.
Mountain City.
And maybe I guess next time we'll go into detail and stuff.
Well, you know, I could really
yeah.
go for a steak right now. Let's see the Crockett Brothers Steak Company. It's right behind you.
For all the remaining ZoomTRAK viewers, if we do
There
in-depth
it is.
operations, it will not go over the time limit. we at RANTRAK can guarantee at least that.
Daniel,
Okay.
dare I say your nickname, Choo Choo?
You know,
Choo Choo.
There
I
he
can
is.
say that I have a mustache at least. I can't believe he just said that in front of ZoomTRAK.
You're famous,
Yeah,
man. And there
You're
is
live
the
on
Massey
ZoomTRAK.
Fuel Terminal.
So
Steve, did you set up some coal cars up there at the coal?
I was running a coal train. I just stopped it, so no, I didn't set up any up there for
If you want
today.
to show them the Great Northern Time Freight.
Yeah,
Great Northern Time Freight.
so
Yeah, let's see Daniel Chu's Great Northern. I think he's earned it.
Well, so I might have mentioned my Lowell Smith cars. The reason I discovered them was because they were Great Northern cars. And we guys love Great Northern cars.
and one of the scenic spots, really. I don't know, maybe have to get a little zoom going in here, but
Yeah,
that section along the river.
definitely.
So if you're looking at the stream right now, we got about 70, 80 car Great Northern freight train parked here at Lebanon Yard on the Blue Ridge and Western. The 3 units, including the Great Northern number 400, the Hustle Muscle, just finished refueling here in Lebanon, and they're about to go up Difficult Hill. And Difficult Hill on the Blue Ridge and Western is about a 3-4% grade. Very tough stretch of railroad. If you are running a long train up that grade, you're definitely going to need helpers, and you're going to have a very bad time if you're trying to run any train more than 30 cars up that.
Chu, I've never seen you have a bad time.
Well, trust me, there have been moments where I've had bad times.
All right, Steve, the closer you get underneath that TV set, you're probably going to get some feedback.
Actually, I'm unplugged, so There shouldn't be any feedback. I'm only on my phone, unfortunately.
Good deal. Look at those fuel racks. That was a creation of our own Tom Kaiser, and I'm so glad to see his fuel racks getting some attention. Yep. Now, we just had another member give us a clinic this morning on using Arduino. And I think that if you push your camera down immediately and look at the turntable, it is a controlled turntable, but we could definitely use those Arduino controls because that error message has been looking at us for a while now.
Yeah, I think one of the tracks actually, it shorts sometimes, so that might help, but that's for another time.
Here's a 1968 Empire Builder with a mixed rainbow contest.
Wow.
Livingston has his tank train.
I used did.
Not
Stop.
the tanks you're thinking of, the other tanks.
Are those the 3D printed ones?
Yes.
Nice.
Hey guys, I hate to interrupt this, but I'm going to have to shut down the meeting now. Anyway.
That's okay, Bruce. Man, thank you for letting us roll as long as you did.
Oh yeah,
I'll
sure.
go get supper.
All right. We'll see you all later.
Somebody
Good
wake
night.
up Ron. Somebody wake up Ron Hawkins.
Bye now.